AEW Collision Ratings Disaster TNT. The show opened with 472,000 viewers in the first segment. The show opened with Tony Khan publicly firing or reiterating that he was firing and why CM Punk. And the show dropped. And keep in mind that 472 for the start is low already. Yes, the show dropped to, I've written 250. Apparently it was 244,000 viewers by segment 8, which is a loss of 50% of the viewing audience. Now, just before you, because I know you've got many things to say about it, a loss of 50% is basically unheard of for a wrestling show, for people starting to the amount of people finish watching it. There were a couple of college football games happening. WWE Payback was also happening.
Yep.
But the fact that they still started off with just under 500,000 and ended up with under 250,000 is a real terrible sign.
If they just started with 500 and maintained that, that'd been a win.
Yeah.
I think.
Absolutely.
Now and I predicted all along that when they get into the football season, and of course they ran up against WWE pay-per-view too, it's going to kick the shit out of them. Mm-hmm. So how do you fight that? I don't care what you put on. You're still not going to reach your potential. And I'm wondering, are Warner Brothers are certainly looking at it. Now, I don't know how long the contract with Tony and AEW is for, or for what amount of money it's for, but they got to look at that and they're saying, are we getting our money's worth? How long of a deal did they sign with Tony?
I don't think that has been released. I imagine, if I was just going to guess, I'd say 4 years average, maybe, because that seems to be like a TV cycle. I mean, I think the TV rights cycle is generally 5 years, so it could have been 5 years. But the fact is that I've maintained this, is that I'll guarantee Warner Brothers Discovery in the contract, and however much money they've given AEW, will have an out somewhere.
They will.
And if the ratings dip consistently below something, they will pull the plug.
What's the money figure on it? Did you ever hear?
They never released. You mentioned $1 bill Phil before. Now, that was in response to a rumor getting out that Warner Brothers Discovery had paid AEW $1 billion over, let's say, 5 years to produce these 3 TV shows weekly. Now, that's probably overly high, but we don't know.
I don't know. Well, it is a little bit high, I think, of course, but I don't know how they price this stuff. I have no idea. So I could call my old friend Dave Brown. He used to work at Channel 5 in Memphis.
Well, yeah, if you want to know the weather, yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah. I said, Dave, give me the weather and then give me a feeling on this. What do you think they're making a year? So, but hey, I hope it all works out. I do. I hope Tony gets peace. I hope he straightens his ship out. But I have Hart. I'm even getting tired of hearing myself. He needs to take control, because you cannot run any country, any company, if you don't have a boss. And he wanted to be the boss, but didn't want to be the boss. Mm-hmm. See, he's living in a make-believe world that these are actually people they're trying to get places too. They all want the top spot. I don't blame them. Because if they don't think they could get the top spot, they don't need to be there. But they need to compete. But Tony, I can't put it in words, but he's going to have to. I think we're going to see Bryan Danielson in there quicker than we think.
You said more control, but I think I'll pick up on that in a second. I want to say before, and maybe this whole thing with CM Punk has burst his bubble, because maybe beforehand he was living in Teletubby land, where the sun's always shining and there's giant lolloping bunnies jumping over the hilly brush. All of a sudden now he's brought to reality. And there was an old joke that it was always called All Friends Wrestling internally. And maybe he's starting to realise that, hey, these aren't all friends. We're not all on the same team here. We're all independent contractors, and this is show business, not show friends.
Well, wrestling has an old saying: the inmates cannot run the asylum.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that came up with wrestling or if it was somewhere else, but the wrestlers cannot run their own ship. Because unless you have a boss and somebody making the decisions, you're going to have chaos.
Last question. In all seriousness, because as a booker of many, many, many years' experience, it would not be out of the question for Tony Khan to call up Dutch Mantell and say, hey, do you want a job remotely booking Collision? Let's say that happens. It's unlikely, but it's not out of the question. In all seriousness, you have turned around promotions several times with your booking. Let's say you're given 6 weeks to at least make a tiny bit of headway with the ratings and building up fan interest and etc. etc. How would you, or 6 weeks or 3 months, whatever you want to do, what are the basics that Tony Khan or whoever books Collision need to do to start repairing the damage that AEW suffered recently?
Well, this is one thing that Tony has ran into, I'm sure. He wanted to use the Bucks more, but I bet you when he gave them his idea, they didn't want to do it, or they wanted to change this, or they wanted to change that. And the same way with, and I can't say for sure, same way with Omega. You know, they have certain things they like to do. And if they present too much of a, you know, I don't want to do that, I want to do something else. Well, he's put all this effort into thinking of this, and all of a sudden, the first time they hear it, they poo-poo it. No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. So, see, it's not like that with Vince. It's not like that with the WWE. They tell you they want something, and this is the way they want it to end up. And you either do it or you don't do it. You don't say, and a few of them have, but they got to use diplomacy when they're talking to Vince. They got to say, Vince, love it, man. Whether they could hate it, but they can say, I love that, but let me just give you this. And that's the way they work through it, because they want to give it to Vince and see if, you know, he'll budge a little bit. If he don't budge, they're stuck with it. I've seen a lot of things, guys go out there and it would just fall flat on its face. So putting me with Alberto Del Rio, I knew from the first time Vince called us together and put us together, this son of a bitch is going to die a horrifying death. And it died a horrifying death in about 3 weeks. Because I didn't go in the back and say, oh, this sucks. I didn't say nothing. I said, they're going to see it soon enough. Then I had an idea I wanted to do with it that would have really kicked it into gear. But they didn't want to hear that either. So, but if he called me and wanted me, I'd help him. But I don't want. See, once I've gotten away from wrestling and now I'm talking about it on this podcast and another podcast I do, I'd rather much talk about it than actually try to go to these guys and try to convince them to do this stuff.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this another way then. So, forget Tony Khan. He's on leave. You are solely in charge of Collision. Give me the top. You can pick any wrestler currently with AEW. Give me the top feud. Give me a secondary 2 people to feud, and give me 2 tag teams who you would build the entire show on. So who do you think you could really work with and book and would build interest? And
so you want me to come up on the spur of the moment?
Yeah,
I don't even know who the roster is, but they are some guys that I would use a lot better than what they're using now. Orange Cassidy is a great talent, but he's on all the time. I don't know what angle you could really work with Orange Cassidy that would really, really draw. And he's great. He really is. I hated the gimmick when I first saw it, the kick and the kick and the kick. And, you know, it's like the joke inside the joke. And then but when he wants to work, he can. But they really haven't gotten to a really serious angle with him. I think Miro could do a hell of an angle. I think, name somebody else. I think the Bucks are good, but I don't know who they would go against. Omega is great. You just got to find somebody for him to go with. Who else they got? Jericho. Jericho's been the whole 4 years though. And I don't know what he would do.
MJF's the champion. What about MJF?
Now that's something you got to build it around. He's over. People like him. He can work. He's a smart ass. So, but the Guns, I think the Guns would be a good team to build around. Now Billy's away from them now, right?
Yeah, he's with the Acclaimed.
And I thought that was a mistake to take them away.
Yeah.
Now he's going against his own kids. And you know, if you're seeing Billy Gunn out there and he's against his own kids, and you're going, I don't know if he really wants them to. Now it'd be a hell of a way to turn him back heel if he rejoined them again. They can do that, but I can't give you a layout of what I would do. But of course, it would be MJF as the top baby face. The top heel would be, give me a good top heel.
Jon Moxley.
I think he's overused.
Bryan Danielson.
Bryan Danielson. But I'd make him babyface. See, to me, they don't have any fire-breathing heels. You know, they got big guys, but, you know, you're not really afraid of them.
God, Johnny Nitro's on the AEW roster. Is he?
I guess. I've seen him on there.
Crikey.
And I tell you, a thing they need to work on is their backstage presentation. Mm-hmm. It is horrible. It's almost like watching an independent show. And that Renee Paquette, or what's her name?
Paquette.
Paquette. I was in WWE with her. She's great. She really is. But, and I don't know who writes that or who produces that, but it's really, really, their backstage production is not good at all.
I know.
And the lighting is bad. I would light that arena up. When you see WWE, it's very expensive to light these arenas up. Mm. But I think AEW just has that ring light over the ring, and then the rest of it is darkened out. You don't have that in Raw because they spent about $100,000 a show to get that lighting right.
Samoa Joe, he's got to be the one, hasn't he?
Samoa Joe, I'd do something with him.
Mm.
I'd do a lot with him, really. Great talker.
I'll give you one more, Christian. Or Christian Cage, I think he is now.
I think he'd be good if you could get Edge to come in.
Well, now, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to say, with CM Punk gone, do you think now Tony Khan makes an extra strong play for Edge?
Maybe. Possibly. But I don't think Edge is dying to really go there. I just don't. I think he put in his number that he wanted WWE to pay him, and they didn't quite see he was that valuable. So, but he's sitting in a good spot right now. He's sitting in a great spot because Tony either meets his demand or he doesn't. But I don't think he wants to leave WWE. I really don't. That's where he made his name, and they took care of him. And great worker. His last match on SmackDown was the final match he was celebrating 25 years since his induction into the WWE, the roster. And him and Sheamus, they had like a 20-minute match, and it kicked. It really kicked. And they entered it the right way. They entered it with, Edge standing in the middle of the ring and waving at the fans because they're the ones who made him. They did a good job of that. Now, when they want to do a good job with something, they do a good job with it if they want to.